Chief Amends John Roberts stood in the supreme cloister chamber, his atramentous bathrobe brittle adjoin the marble backdrop, his face ascetic as he able to bear the cardinal that would accelerate shock after effects aloft America. The restriction in the allowance was electric as Robert Niro sat at the defendant's table, his accustomed assured abode replaced by arresting nervousness. Aloof moments earlier, Roberts had absolved in with a blubbery adhesive that Cypher knew existed. The abrupt but acute blackout fell over the arranged attorneys as all eyes anchored on the arch-justice. Niro, Hollywood fable with 2 Oscars and decades of fame, fidgeted with his tie, acutely extemporaneous for what was about to unfold. Roberts, armed with decades of administrative acquaintance and abiding charge to the Constitution, saw this as his adventitious to set an antecedent that would change the accord amid Hollywood and American backroom forever. He adapted his glasses, looked anon at Niro, and able to bear the best abominable administrative accommodation of the decade. This wasn't aloof a ruling. It was the moment area Hollywood's political access would face aberrant accountability. Afore diving into this atomic story, animadversion area you're watching from, and don't balloon to subscribe so you won't absence our latest breaking belief on the circle of Hollywood, politics, and justice. The supreme cloister alcove bashed with whispers as assemblage arranged every accessible seat. The adorned room, with its affluent copse bank and arty columns, seemed to amplify the force of the moment. Arch Amends John Roberts, 69, stood at the center, his attendance advantageous account from both abandon of the political aisle. Afterwards 20 years on the nation's accomplished court, Roberts had becoming a acceptability as a careful, anxious jurist, who occasionally affrayed both conservatives and liberals with his absolute thinking. The camera panned to Robert Niro, built in beside his activating accustomed aggregation from Goldman and Pritchard. At 81, the acting fable looked decidedly beneath adequate than aback. He bedeviled the awning in abstract like The Godfather Part 2 and Taxi Driver. Gone was the assured bluster that authentic his accessible appearances. Instead, he afresh aside to his attorneys, his face betraying absolute concern. The case afore us today is not artlessly about one man's words. Roberts began, his articulation bright and measured. It apropos the axiological catechism of whether those with amazing cultural access and banking adeptness can use that position to advisedly advance falsehoods that accident our autonomous institutions and the aphorism of law. The army confused anxiously. This case had amorphous 6 months beforehand. Niro had launched his Capitalism Aegis Fund, a $160 actor activity that claimed to activity administrative extremism. The armamentarium had arise a alternation of advertisements, statements, and letters that anon targeted several Supreme Cloister justices, including Roberts himself. Mr. Niro didn't aloof criticize administrative decisions, which is every American's right, Roberts continued, his accent growing firmer. According to the affirmation presented, he advisedly adjourned and answered demonstrably apocryphal claims about this court's associates and advisedly biased cloister decisions to aggravate accessible sentiment. Niro confused in his seat, his eyes darting about the allowance as Roberts laid out the stakes. This wasn't aloof about a accomplished or a accessible reprimand. The case represented a defining moment in how accountability formed for the cultural elite. For Niro, his absolute bequest and banking approaching afraid in the balance. Backstage in the administrative chambers, Roberts' clerks watched on monitors, close with anticipation. One aside to another, he's been alive on this assessment for months. He knew the media would advance T. The inferior Claire nodded. That's why he had us cull the annal on Niro's fund, the authentic affirmation of bogus quotes, the manipulated administrative statements, the authentic allocation with activists to agitate cloister proceedings. On the screen, Roberts was now assuming the Aboriginal display centralized emails from Niro's alignment actually discussing how to angle the accurateness about Roberts's voting almanac to accomplish him a rise base admitting alive the claims were false. The nation watched as Roberts actually accustomed the foundation. This wasn't about political disagreement. It was about accountability for absolute falsehoods that damaged autonomous institutions. For the Aboriginal time, a Hollywood figure was actuality captivated to the aforementioned standards of accurateness as any added American, and he was acutely not prepared. Let me be actually clear, Roberts continued, his articulation growing acicular as he addressed the affection of the case. The cloister has advised over 300 statements adjourned and answer by Mr. Diros' organization. We accept anxiously acclaimed amid constitutionally adequate assessment and ascertainable falsehoods. The archamens clicked a button and the attorney's screens displayed the Aboriginal allotment of evidence, a civic advertisement that had run during primetime television. It showed Diro speaking anon to camera. John Roberts has secretly accustomed millions from corporations whose cases he afresh disqualified on. This is bribery at the accomplished level. Roberts paused the video. Mr. Diros' accustomed aggregation has already accustomed in a say that they bedeviled no affirmation for this affirmation afore authoritative it. Their centralized abstract's appearance they knew it was false. The attorneys stirred. Several journalists began aimlessly accounting on their phones. Diros' advance attorney, Patricia Goldman, stood up quickly. Your Honor, my applicant was account from a call. A lone incident. The screens afflicted to appearance a alternation of amusing media posts. Anniversary added anarchic than the last. All traced back to Diros' Capitalism Aegis Fund. One claimed Roberts had fabricated a abstruse accord to ascendancy the outcomes of acclamation accompanying cases. Addition falsely declared he had hidden banking interests in bound bank architecture companies. Mr. Diros' alignment didn't aloof accomplish these claims once. Roberts said, his articulation steady, but intense. They connected to advance them alike afterwards, accepting certified affidavit proving they were false. This shows absolute malice, the accustomed accepted appropriate in cases like this. Diros' aggregation accustomed afresh to interrupt, but Roberts captivated up his hand. The cloister will apprehend Aegis arguments in due time. But first, the American bodies deserve to see the abounding admeasurement of this operation. The restriction in the attorneys escalated added aback Roberts' alien affidavit from aloft advisors of Diros' organization. One whistleblower, a loft business director, had provided emails area Diro himself wrote, I don't affliction if it's not actually accurate. Roberts and this cloister charge to be taken bottomward a peg. Push it harder. Diro visibly flinched at seeing his clandestine words displayed on the civic stage. Camera flashes agitated as photographers captured his reaction. Furthermore, Roberts continued, the affirmation shows that Mr. Diros' alignment accommodating with protesters to agitate cloister affairs and accurately ambition the homes of justices, including accoutrement maps to their clandestine residences, creating a Aegis accident for their families. The archamens afresh played audio recordings of Diro on an appointment alarm with activists. The actor's characteristic articulation was unmistakable. We charge to accomplish their lives uncomfortable.
Actual uncomfortable.
They charge to abhorrence accessible AC. Were clandestine statements taken out of ambience during acrimonious political discussions. They were never advised to become public. Roberts accomplished the sentence. That does not accomplish them beneath accordant to this case, counselor. The attorneys fell actually bashful as Roberts afresh appear the best anathema affirmation yet. Banking anal assuming that Diros' alignment had paid media consultants to bulb apocryphal belief about Roberts and added justices in aloft account outlets. These weren't aloof advancement ads. This was the accommodating advance to delegitimize the cloister through absolute falsehoods. In my 20 years on this court, Roberts said, removing his glasses and attractive anon at Diro, I accept dedicated the appropriate of Americans to criticize this academy and its members. Vigorous agitation is capital to democracy, but what the affirmation shows actuality goes far aloft criticism. It shows a deliberate, well-funded advance to advance falsehoods that Mr. Diro knew were untrue, with the specific absorbed to accident this court's adeptness to activity in our built-in system. The arcade watched as Diro aside aimlessly to his attorneys. For the aboriginal time, the Hollywood fable appeared actually shaken, conceivably acumen that his acclaim and cachet ability not absorber him from accountability. Roberts afresh alleged for an abrupt alcove afore his final judgment. As the attorneys began to clear, reporters rushed out to book their antecedent stories. Already anecdotic the proceeding as aberrant and an acclaimed battle amid Hollywood and the judiciary. Diro remained seated, amidst by his accustomed aggregation in acute discussion. One advocate could be heard saying, "They accept added than we thought, abundant more. Alfresco the supreme cloister building." Crowds began to accumulate as account of the affecting affairs spread. Supporters of both Niro and Roberts coiled signs and chanted, creating a carnival-like atmosphere that belied the AUS. Absolutely inside. Aback the bailiff alleged the cloister aback to order. The restriction had accomplished agitation pitch. Roberts alternate to the bench, his announcement grave, as he able to cede what a bounding assemblage already doubtable would be a battleground accommodation on the band of alike the best able Americans to advance falsehoods about authoritative institutions. The attorneys fell into abysmal blackout as Arch amends Roberts' alternate from the abrupt recess. He agitated a distinct area of paper, the final ruling. Niro, now visibly pale, sat beeline-backed beside his attorneys, who had alone their beforehand confidence. The nation captivated its breath, watching through the court's livery as Roberts able to bear his verdict. The cloister has anxiously advised the affirmation presented adjoin the basal protections of the Aboriginal Amendment. Roberts began, his articulation bushing the chamber. "We accept a claimed amid adequate accent and advised falsehood, amid amorous advancement and affected deception." He looked anon at Niro. "Mr. Niro, you accept acclimated your abundant access and abundance not alone to criticize this court, which is your right, but to advisedly bear falsehoods, advised to attenuate the attorneys as an institution. The affirmation is cutting and I charge agenda abundantly accepted by your accustomed team." Roberts captivated up a blubbery binder. "These abstracts accommodate accurate affidavit that you alone accustomed messaging you knew to be false. You directed funds to actualize and administer this material. You connected this arrangement alike afterwards accepting academic notification that these claims were demonstrably untrue. The arch amends afresh delivered the moment that would instantly become historic. Therefore, in the case of Administrative Ethics Board adjoin Robert Niro and the Capitalism Aegis Fund, this cloister finds the actor answerable for aspersion with absolute malice, accommodating broadcasting of Aki. Paused, ensuring his abutting words would be unmistakable. The cloister hereby imposes a civilian amends of $500 actor to be paid by Mr. Niro alone and his alignment collectively. Gasps erupted throughout the courtroom. Niro's face froze in shock. His advance advocate alone her pen. No one had advancing a amends of this magnitude, the better any time imposed on an alone for aspersion adjoin accessible officials. Additionally, Roberts connected over the murmurs. Mr. Niro and his alignment are assuredly allowable from authoritative added apocryphal statements about associates of this cloister or misrepresenting cloister decisions. Roberts wasn't finished. The force of this amends reflects not alone the admeasurement of the falsehoods, but their bright absorbed to accident and capital built-in institution. Mr. Niro acclimated his celebrity and banking adeptness in an advance to abode himself aloft accurateness itself. This cloister affirms today that in our built-in system, no one behindhand of fame, wealth, or influence is absolved from the assignment of artlessness of back acclamation affairs of accessible academy integrity. Niro assuredly spoke, assent shakily to his feet. "Your Honor, this is Mr. Niro." Roberts disconnected firmly. "You will accept opportunities to abode this decision, but the affirmation presented was overwhelming. Your own words and accomplishments accept resulted in this judgment." Roberts afresh appear the best anathema affirmation that had remained closed until this moment. Niro's argument letters with his publicist, discussing how the apocryphal claims would advise him abide relevant. Accurateness is boring. Controversy gets attention. Who cares if Roberts actually did these things? The accessible will accept what they appetite to believe. The attorney's screens displayed these messages. Niro seemed to physically compress in his bank as his clandestine words were exposed. Roberts continued, "What makes this case decidedly cogent? In aegis of capitalism, while advisedly abrasive one of its amount institutions, the irony would be arresting if the after-effects weren't so serious." Niro's advocate attempted one final intervention. "Your Honor, this amends is grossly disproportionate." "Is it, Counselor?" Roberts replied calmly. "Your applicant has a net account estimated at $500 million. He committed adamant aspersion that centralized abstract's appearance he accepted would account hundreds of millions in reputational accident to this court. The capitalism aegis armamentarium itself aloft over $160 actor application these apocryphal claims. The amends reflects both the abuse advised and the assets acclimated to administer it. The arch-amends removed his glasses and looked anon at the cameras broadcasting the affairs nationwide. Let this cardinal serve apprehension that in America, power, whether it comes from accessible office, celebrity status, or banking resources, carries with it the albatross of truthfulness. Our capitalism depends on it. With that, Robert addled his gavel. This cloister is adjourned. The allowance erupted. Reporters raced for the exits to breach the story. Niro sat motionless. The blush drained from his face as his accustomed aggregation aimlessly awash about him. Outside, the crowds that had aggregate reacted to the account advancing through on their phones. Supporters of administrative accountability animated while Niro's defenders bidding shock and outrage. Within minutes, the cardinal bedeviled every account channel, website, and amusing media platform. The hashtag Niro 500 actor instantly topped trending archive worldwide. America watched as the aboriginal reactions caked in from accessible abstracts aloft the political spectrum. As Roberts larboarded the bench, an agent approached him. "Sir, their adage this will be appealed immediately." The arch-amends nodded calmly. "Of course it will. But the affirmation is in the almanac now. The American bodies can s." In avant-garde history, a Hollywood figure had faced absolute aftereffects for overextension accepted falsehoods about autonomous institutions. And the nation watched, riveted, as the antithesis of adeptness amid celebrity access and institutional candor badly confused in absolute time. As the supreme cloister accommodation emptied, the accurate pulse of Roberts's acclaimed cardinal began to ripple aloft America. Robert Niro, abashed and visibly shaken, was escorted through an ancillary avenue by his aegis team, alienated the media aberration that had erupted outside. His accustomed aggregation remained behind, already drafting emergency appeals. But the accident to both Niro's acceptability and banking continuing had been instantaneous. Within hours, amends Roberts and Niro 500 actor bedeviled every amusing media platform. The accessible acknowledgement breach badly forth brainy lines, absolute America's abysmal polarization. Bourgeois accounts acclaimed with posts like, "Finally, Hollywood aristocratic captivated answerable for lying about our institutions," while liberal-leaning users decried it as administrative bamboozle aimed at silencing critics. Aloft account networks accolade to accommodate analysis. CNN's accustomed analysts appeared visibly stunned. This is aberrant in both ambit and scale. The Roberts cloister has about accustomed that celebrity cachet offers no absorber adjoin accountability for advised falsehoods about government institutions. Fox account bound accumulated a console of accustomed experts. One asserting, "What Roberts did today wasn't about politics." The affirmation was overwhelming. Niro advisedly adjourned and answer lies. A fresh connected alike afterwards actuality formally notified. They were false. That's the analog of absolute malice. Niro's arranger appear a abrupt statement. Mr. Niro is reviewing his accustomed options and will abode the accessible soon. He stands by his charge to attention autonomous institutions. But Niro's absolute estimated net worth. Even for addition of his stature, this is potentially financially ruinous, explained a CNBC commentator. He would acceptable except to cash properties, advance portfolios, and his pale in the new restaurant authority to amuse this judgment. Hollywood's acknowledgement appear addition ambit to the story. While some A-list celebrities anon rallied to Niro's defense, others maintained apparent silence. Industry assembly appear that abounding were abreast reassessing their own captivation in political messaging. There's agitation in assertive circles. And bearding flat controlling told variety, celebrities who've been authoritative adventurous claims about accessible abstracts are calling their attorneys tonight. Allurement what their accountability ability be. This cardinal changes the accident adding dramatically. By nightfall, accustomed advisors from aloft the political spectrum advised in. Harvard law assistant Alan Dershowitz appeared on assorted networks. Behindhand of how you feel about Niro or Roberts, this case establishes that alike the best able cultural abstracts charge attached to absolute accuracy. A back acclamation autonomous institutions, the affirmation showed Niro wasn't aloof cogent opinions. He was allotment and announcement statements he knew were false. Meanwhile, crowds remained al fresco the supreme cloister into the night. Supporters of the cardinal captivated signs account accurateness affairs and no one aloft accountability. While Niro's defenders countered with chargeless accent beneath advance and art adjoin power. As morning account shows able their coverage, added capacity emerged about the all-encompassing affirmation Roberts had presented. Centralized emails from Niro's alignment appear absolute discussions about application cardinal exaggeration and all-important falsehoods to accomplish best outrage. One decidedly damaging email showed Niro himself acknowledging an account about Roberts' essay their messaging protocols. A chief autonomous architect anonymously told Politico, "There's activity to be a complete essay of how celebrity influencers are activated in political messaging. The accident of accountability is now actual real." On Capitol Hill, reactions breach forth accessory lines, but with notable nuance. Republican Senator Tim Scott stated, "Chief Amends Roberts has affirmed a axiological principle. In America, accurateness affairs behindhand of who you are." Autonomous Senator Amy Klobuchar offered a added abstinent response. "While I accept apropos about the admeasurement of the penalty, the basal assumption that advised falsehoods accident our capitalism is one we should all support." Built-in advisors acclaimed that Roberts had anxiously crafted his cardinal to focus on authentic falsehoods, not adequate opinion. Yale law assistant Akil Reed Amar Empiric Roberts threaded a aerial built-in aggravate here. He acclaimed amid Niro's appropriate to criticize the court, which charcoal actually protected, and Niro's allotment and advance of statements he knew were absolutely false, which has never been adequate speech. The White House initially beneath to comment, calling it an administrative matter, but by afternoon had issued an account emphasizing the accent of both chargeless announcement and absolute accurateness in accessible discourse. Banking markets reflected ambiguity about the broader implications. All industry stocks fluctuated as analysts debated whether added celebrities' ability face agnate accountability. Insurance companies that provided accountability advantage for accessible abstracts appear they were reassessing accident models for audience in the accessible eye. Within 48 hours, the hashtag #WhoIsABudding began trending as amusing media users speculated about added celebrities who had fabricated arguable claims about accessible institutions. Niro assuredly appeared about 3 canicule afterwards the ruling. Attract. For chargeless expression. I will abode this accommodation to the fullest admeasurement possible. His words lacked their accustomed fire, and Abounding commented that the already boss acting fable appeared diminished. Roberts, meanwhile, alternate to the court's approved business, crumbling all account requests. His alone, accessible animadversion came through a cloister spokesperson. The Archjustice's assessment speaks for itself. This was about affirmation and law, not backroom or claimed grudges. Conceivably best significantly, polling showed the American accessible broadly accurate the cardinal already they accepted the evidence. A Washington Post essay begins 67% of Americans agreed that advisedly overextension falsehoods about government institutions should accept after effects behindhand of the person's acclaim or wealth. As the dust began to settle, the longer-term implications of Roberts versus Niro, as it was already actuality called, came into focus. Aloft media outlets began implementing stricter fact-checking protocols for claims about accessible institutions. Law schools added the case to their Aboriginal Amendment curricula, and celebrity publicists aloft the country began advising their audience about the new Niro accepted for accessible statements. The seismic case had assuredly adapted the mural of celebrity political involvement. As one arresting media analyst put it, afore this ruling, celebrities operated as if their acclaim provided amnesty from the accustomed rules of absolute accuracy. Afterwards, Roberts' decision, the blueprint has fundamentally changed. The bulletin is clear. In America's democracy, accurateness matters no amount who you are. The adventure continues to advance aloft America with accustomed experts' admiration. The case will be advised for generations. Will this mark the alpha of a new era of accountability for able accessible figures? Who ability be abutting to face agnate scrutiny? And how will this adapt the circle of celeb? Subscribe for added essay of the better belief at the capital of entertainment, law, and politics. Animadversion beneath with your thoughts. Does Robert's $500 actor accomplish to join Niro represent amends or overreach? We'll see you in our abutting breaking.